Okay, so looking at my computer, argument one talks about Aristotle's error in classifying whales with fish. The question was it a problem with method or goals? I said yes to both. You guys can read it in the forum, but I did want to add that the framing of the question was interesting because it framed error as an authoritative sort of frame. And I ultimately thought that it was an interesting question, not necessarily because I disagreed with it, but kind of, yeah, because if we want to talk about Aristotle under the frame of him making errors, that sort of leads to a non sequitur in a way. I'll read my response here, sort of just go through it real quick. The framing of the question resembles a non sequitur, if it isn't already. To approach the question of Aristotle's work under the guise of errors, not only is the approach unjustified, but it describes Aristotle with questionable faith. The first challenge of reading Aristotle is to set aside modern biases, especially where we stand 2,300 years later. Well, between reading the Anima and parts of Animals, we could observe that he is doing philosophy the way philosophy has always been done, by looking backward at our predecessors. He references Pythagoras, Anaximander, and Thales, who were all established thinkers during Aristotle's life. To frame him, as well as his predecessors, under a scope of errors is to be dismissive of work that was high stakes during ancient life. Correctness is irrelevant here, especially when we have the luxury of knowledge and references at our own fingertips, and this context only highlights the non sequitur more loudly. It's a fallacy of relevance. Aristotle couldn't see the future he laid out for everyone towards Aquinas, Descartes, Kant, etc. And those figures look back on him as an important source of knowledge, but there was no way for him to respond to them beyond his lifetime. So to read Aristotle is to read someone's ideas frozen in time, where they remain unchanged and unaffected despite future interpretations of his ideas. And I think that's it.